Welcome to the Boardroom Zen. I am your host, Megha Joshi. In this show, we hear the untold stories and best practices from world-class business executives on how they deal with pressure and setbacks in the boardroom and beyond. Yes, these business leaders are no superhumans, but they have found their unique formula to stay grounded and bring their A game to the table amidst the chaos. So let's begin. In today's episode, I bring to you a special guest who has deeply inspired me with the power of his ideas and words. He serves as the President's Special Counsel to the CEO of Comcast, where he partners with Comcast Cable leadership on a variety of important initiatives. Most recently, he served as the President of Comcast West Division, where he was responsible for $19 billion in revenue, serving over 15 million customers with the support of 30,000 employees. He's also a renowned voice in the speaking circuit and has recently published a book called Uncompromising that distills 7 pathways to identify and live your purpose. Please join me in welcoming Steve White to the show. Steve, welcome.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Absolute privilege, Steve. Thank you. So, Steve, why don't we start with a little bit about your early years and your experiences, any pivotal experiences that shaped you into the leader, the human, the executive you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of different things impacted me. But first of all, let me first start off. There's no such thing as failure, because every situation is a learning opportunity. So here's my headline: from the housing projects to the corporate boardroom. I started off as a little kid raised by a single mother who was a high school janitor for 35 years, raised 4 boys by herself in the housing projects of Indianapolis. And she was a motel maid that migrated to become a high school janitor. And I remember very early on when my mother made the difficult decision to leave my father, who we all loved very much. We certainly didn't support that decision, but she made that decision. On the weekend, she would take us to that motel room because, one, she couldn't afford a babysitter. And we learned the value of hard work at 11 years old, cleaning motel rooms. Now, this is motel with an M, not hotel with an H. So there's no spa. There's no in-room dining. This is a place where you pull your car up and your door's right there. But I learned the value of hard work, teamwork, family, commitment, and not allowing your circumstances or your environment dictate your mindset. Although we were poor, although people didn't always respect us, I learned in those motel rooms that the value of hard work and you created a vision and a dream for yourself is what's important. Never give up that power to let someone else dictate to you what your dreams are. So those were some very early experiences that shaped the person that I am today. Hardworking, focused, committed, maybe too much of an A personality at times, but that was one of those critical moments for me that we could have looked at ourselves as victims, but we decided not to. We decided to look at that as an opportunity to be better. And that really inspired me in my early years.
Beautifully said, Steve. And you describe it well. We all have a choice at how we look at challenges and turn them into opportunities. And it seems like that's exactly what you did. And by the way, I read your book recently. And there was one profound experience you shared that moved me so much with your child. Amidst your childhood years, you mentioned that your family, your mother didn't necessarily have a lot of resources or money, even around the holidays, to buy gifts for each other. And one of the gifts you remember was $10 worth of fruit. Peaches and apples that your mother brought for the kids, and to you, that was a luxury. And that really, touched me deeply for somebody to look at those basic amenities as a luxury.
Yeah.
When you look at your childhood experiences, would you take away any of those painful experiences? Would you change anything about it?
Absolutely not. Now, at the time, it was not pleasant. And the thing about that story is the way we were able to purchase the fruit. I was a paper boy. So when I was not helping my mom in the motel, I was a paper boy. And that was the days when you got out, you walked the street and you placed the newspaper. And we used my earnings to help fund our Christmas that year with fruit, which was really, really special to me. But I want to share with you a Shakespeare quote. My wife's grandfather would often quote this: nothing is good, nothing is bad, thinking makes it so. So you get to decide, is this a good situation or a bad situation? And we were so thankful to have something under the Christmas tree. Our view was, this is fantastic. Now, we didn't know we were poor. We didn't know kids had new bikes and all of that for Christmas. We didn't understand that. But we just felt that what we had was really, really special and we were blessed. So nothing is good, nothing is bad. Thinking makes it so. So you're in control of your situation.
So powerful, Steve. And thank you for sharing that quote. I had not heard that before, but I can deeply relate to it. And I do believe that our thoughts shape our reality. No matter what circumstances, we create our own reality in every single moment.
That's exactly right. Can I add just one point? Because one point I want to share with you, because people often say, Steve, give me one piece of advice. If you were 13 years old again, or 16 years ago, or 18 years old, what would you tell yourself? And here's what I would tell you. I mean, there are a lot of different things, but be careful who you surround yourself with, because the 5 people that you spend the most time with, that's who you become. So if you are around 5 or 6 people consistently that are positive, that are encouraging you, that are pushing you, challenging you, not giving you false pride or hope, but they're being honest with you, but doing it from a position of love, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And I know in my situation, certainly having a strong family, but also having great friends that encourage me played a major role in my success. So whatever age you are, 13, 18, 54, 60, 45, whatever, evaluate who you're spending your time with. And if you are around people that are not contributing in a positive way, get them out of your life as fast as you can. And that played a major role in my success, constantly having people around me pouring into me in a very positive way.
Yeah, totally. I can see that. And I personally relate to that philosophy. In fact, that is something I bring up with my own executive clients as well, because we don't even realize how much influence those top 5 people have on us. And we spend so much time with people around us. So we got to be really mindful of who we spend time with. And I would even take it a step forward and say, what ideas are we exposing ourselves to? What are we feeding our minds? Whether it's social media, whether it's the books we're reading, whether the conversations we're having, or the news we're watching, it all comes together.
That's exactly right. And if you feel that you're struggling to find those kind of people, that's when you have to do an inventory of yourself. What kind of people am I attracting? What kind of vibe am I communicating? What kind of energy am I sending out into the universe? And if I'm not getting the positive back, then I have to take personal responsibility and say, let me evaluate me, because I know sometimes I'm not always at my best and I'm not attracting the kind of people I need in my life. So I have to take a regular inventory and check myself to make sure that I'm giving off the right vibe and energy into the universe to attract the right people.
Totally. So, Steve, I'm just curious, when your mother moved you and your brothers from Georgia to Indiana, you move into this new state and you came out of humble beginnings with moving to a state you didn't know many people. How did you, over time, orchestrate and bring those people, those top 5, 10 people into your life over time? What was your strategy? And I'm sure it evolved over the years, but anything you could share with the listeners, because a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, it's a good question. And here's the advice I need to give myself. Don't overthink these things. we tend to put so much stress and pressure on ourselves and I'm very guilty of that. But I remember my mother telling me, look, just be a good person. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And when in doubt, double down on treating people nice. And it's interesting to me, the nicer you are to people, the better off you are. Let me give you an example. People often say, well, Steve, how did you go from the housing projects to the president of Comcast West? You're now with one of the top 20 companies in America. You're one of the top 15, 20 executives in this massive $100 billion company. How did that happen? And I'll tell you, for me, I had to get fired. Early on in my career, I got fired from my job because I was so focused on me. I did not think about my people. And as a result, I got fired. And that key learning for me was take care of your people and they will take care of you. So I was working for a company called AT&T Broadband. We got bought by Comcast. Of the top 50 executives, only 2 remained with Comcast. I was one of 2. And about 6 months into the job, I asked my new boss, I said, I'm curious, how did this work out? And they said, Steve, our intention was to let you go as well. But the more we talked to your people, they kept pushing you up. They kept telling us about the problems, but before we could leave, they said, but let me tell you about Steve White. And they heard that a number of times. So when you're anxious about your career, you're anxious about getting noticed, focus on your people because they will push you up. And when they push you up, that will elevate you and you will get noticed. And that's how you get promoted. And so this idea of investing in other people attracts people to you and then they push you up. And that's how I was able to go from those humble beginnings, step by step, to reach one of the highest levels of corporate America.
Wow, that's such a great takeaway because you're right. A lot of us overthink that. And only if we could be ourselves and treat people the way that we want to be treated, I mean, that by itself is simple but mighty way to create your new reality.
That's it. And think about how much energy is spent on being someone else. If you could just spend that energy on just being you. So if you're in an environment, whether it's a job situation or a relationship or whatever, if you can't be yourself, then you really have to question that situation you're in.
Yes, yes. And in terms of energy, I would say it's also worrying about possibilities and things that are out of your control is another way people, spend their energy into areas that aren't very productive.
That's exactly right. I write in my book, thank you for mentioning it earlier, it's called Uncompromising. We released it this year, March 8th. It's available wherever you buy your books. But one of the 7 pathways I talk about, there are only 2 things you can truly control in your life. That's your attitude and your effort. Everything else is really out of your control. We can try, but it's really out of your control. So if you own your attitude in a positive way and you absolutely every day give your best, I truly believe things will work out for the best. I know people might say, well, Steve, that sounds so Pollyanny. That sounds so idealistic. But I am a living example of that.
And you are.
My attitude and my effort, I believe I've tried to strike an A+ there. And I think that's really helped.
Beautiful. And Steve, I'm just curious, right? Knowing your trajectory, you have certainly spent considerable time in the boardrooms and you have been that top-notch executive and you've spent a lot of time with others. So what are those 1 or 2 things that truly separate an exceptional executive from a mediocre executive in the boardroom?
That is such a great question. And here's what I've found. I now serve on 3 public boards. My first board was Hormel Foods, which I still serve on, and I was able to join that board in 2014. I watch the really good ones. And you will be surprised by this. They speak the least amount in the boardroom. So let me say that again. I found the most effective board members, they do the least amount of talking during the boardroom. And you will say, well, Steve, what makes them exceptional then? Well, when they do speak, they truly have something of value to say and to add. And here's the kicker. Their questions, their conversation, their commentary, their narrative always moves the conversation forward, not backwards, not sideways. They ask those thought-provoking questions that gives everyone an opportunity to pause and think, and then that elevates the conversation to another level. So now most conversations pull 2 or 3 layers off of an issue, but the thoughtful board executive, they have the ability to pull 5 or 6 layers off of an issue based on the quality of their questions, which advances the thinking of everyone in the room. And so therefore, the way you do that is you really got to listen. You got to observe. You got to understand what's happening in the room. So I'm sure your parents would say you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So spend most of your time listening and then the other 25% talking. Those are the exceptional leaders. And so that is my North Star. When I sit in a boardroom, before I ask a question, is this going to advance the conversation? Or is this a question about clarity? If it's a question about clarity, I'll say, hey, can you just clarify this for me? I want to make sure I understand. And I try to limit those, but then try to spend the majority of my time advancing the conversation. Those are the exceptional board members that I admire.
Beautiful. And that's such a rich, deep insight that you shared about those top-notch executives performing at their very best. And I totally agree that they operate with a lot of deep intention. They're less about consuming airtime in the room, but rather really digging into the heart of the matter and moving the conversation forward, as you said.
So can I just add this? What a great litmus test to evaluate your relationships. The people that you're with, how often are they asking you penetrating questions to help you be the best you can be? Or co-workers or whatever. I'm not saying that everybody's going to be perfect at it, but it's intentionality, which is what's at play here. Whether you're good at it or not, the intention is to move the conversation forward. What a great litmus test for all of our relationships as well.
Yes, no doubt about it. So Steve, switching gears to another aspect that intrigues me, and by the way, I'm a big believer in living a life of discipline. A life where you build, whether it's rituals or discipline or things that keep a leader in a high performing state, because there's a lot of things that go about that can pull us down, that can bring our energy down. So do you have any morning rituals or evening rituals or whatever things you do during the course of the day that keep you in that elevated state most of the time?
Absolutely. What a great question. First of all, I like to work out. So my morning time, I have a 9-year-old son, and he's an early riser. So I get up early. I'm the morning shift. My wife's an evening shift. But I start every morning for me in prayer, or some people might call it reflection. Whatever you do, find that time early in the morning, midday, at night, depends on what you feel comfortable with, but always find time during the day, even if it's only for 5 minutes. The longer, the better. But if you only have 5 minutes, reflect. What did I accomplish yesterday? What's on my schedule today? Am I living my purpose? The way I'm going to spend my time today, does that align with my purpose and why I've been placed on this earth and what I'm trying to accomplish relative to my goals and initiatives? So for me, that daily ritual of prayer for me, reflection, it allows me to put on a suit of armor because I know there are going to be rockets coming at me throughout the day. And that allows me to kind of get my game face on. And so if it works better for you at night, that's fine. But for me, that is a ritual for me that allows me to approach the day with enthusiasm, gusto, and excitement.
Beautiful. I love that. And I have something similar with a combination of meditation and writing a journal to set the intentions for my day. And that's incredibly powerful. One sneaky question I'll ask you, Steve, is when you wake up in the morning, do you check your phone immediately once you roll out of bed?
I don't. And one of the things that I do is what I try to do is I try to give myself a little grace period because most days I don't wake up to an alarm. I allow myself to wake up. And then I'll lay there for 5 minutes or so just to show gratitude. First of all, a lot of people didn't wake up this morning. So our ability to wake up every morning, there's a sense of gratitude, no matter what your day was like yesterday or what's coming up that day. The fact that you woke up this morning, there should be a level of gratitude. So I'll sit there or lay there for 5 minutes or so, collect my thoughts, think about things, and show gratitude for having another day on this earth to live my purpose in life. And some days it might be 3 minutes, depends on what's happening. But take a moment before you jump out just to show a little gratitude, because nothing can be that bad that you woke up today. And if you're healthy, you should show even more gratitude. But just that moment of gratitude. So one of the things that I do every year that I'll share with your listeners, my family and I, we develop a headline every year for our year. And said, by the end of this year, if we were reading the front page of a newspaper, what would we want that headline to be? And I've been working on my 2023 headline, and we do it as a family, and then we do it individually. And my headline for 2023 this year was Choose Joy. Some days I did a good job at it. Some days I didn't. But my 2023 headline is Gratitude. Reflect, be thankful, think more about what you have versus what you don't have. And that's my headline for 2023.
And that has been the headline of my life for the past many years and continues to be. So thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that and bringing it up here for my listeners. And I will say gratitude is such a simple way of snapping out of negativity and focusing on what you have versus what you do not have. And I also am very intrigued by the electromagnetic field that we as humans carry with us. And scientifically, it's been proven that when we start to be grateful for things we have, our energy changes. It elevates to a much higher, more productive, more creative states of operating.
That's exactly right. Because think about the energy you put on what you don't have. And if you just put that on what you do have, it has the ability to start multiplying because you put your time and your energy and focus on what you do have versus what you don't have. And we're not talking about what you don't have is where your next meal's coming from. That's a whole nother level of stress. What we're talking about is when you have so much to be thankful for, that's where you should focus. And I'm going to have to challenge myself. And I would ask everybody that as you develop your headline, identify one or two accountability coaches that can challenge you when you get off track, because during the year you will get off track, and having someone there to help guide you or position you properly can go a long way.
Beautiful, Steve. Love that. As we are getting to the end part of this episode, what would be the one or two things that you would tell aspiring and existing seasoned executives from your own life experiences?
Well, I talk a lot about it in the book. And as you know, very few of us are getting rich writing books. This is a love affair because you want to pay it forward and help. But in the book, the title is called Uncompromising. And let me explain what that is. Uncompromising does not mean don't compromise. Life is full of compromises. But Mark Twain had a wonderful quote. The two most important days in your life is the day you're born. The second is when you find out why. And once you find out why you've been placed on this earth, because I truly believe all of us have been placed on this earth for a reason. And once you identify that, that is what you're uncompromising relative to your pursuit of living out your purpose and why. And so my challenge to all of your listeners, because it took me a while, it took me, 25 years of living to come to a conclusion of why I was placed on this earth. And I truly believe the reason I was placed on this earth was how can I create a table of prosperity for as many people as possible. And so number one is find out why you've been placed on this earth and then start living your why. Build a kitchen cabinet of leaders that can help you stay accountable to that. And I promise you, a life of success, impact, and legacy is there ready to be taken when you live your purpose and your why.
Wow. So profound nuggets of wisdom you shared with us, Steve. Thank you for that. As we wrap up this episode, do you have any other closing thoughts?
No, I think, first of all, thank you for everything you're doing. I'm so proud of what you're doing and giving back and making a difference. I would ask everybody life is short, and really truly identify your purpose and why, and then follow those 7 pathways that I outlined in the book. Number 1, find your purpose and fight. Number 2, don't be distracted by sideshows. Focus on the real prize. Live life as a learning lab because it's a growth journey. I'm learning so much being with you today. I work for Steve White Incorporated, number 4. So think and act like a business. Number 5, own your attitude and effort. Navigate uncertainty because there'll certainly be a lot of those. And then finally, commit yourself to road dog relationships. Find those men and women you can surround yourself with that'll be truth tellers on your journey.
Steve, you're an absolute powerhouse of wisdom. I probably need to spend more time with you.
No, this has been great. I hope your listeners will benefit from this, but I've certainly enjoyed our conversation today. Life is full of opportunity and possibilities, so go grab it.
Thank you, Steve. It's been wonderful having you on the show. Thank you again for everything.
Thank you.
There is no better time than now to build resilience, lead mindfully, and with purpose. We all deserve to live our very best life. This show is brought to you by The Resilient Human, a company on a mission to develop authentic leaders that thrive amidst pressure and have the courage to write their own story. A sincere thanks to all my listeners for the precious time and presence. If you genuinely enjoyed the show, I'd love for you to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. Be well, and I can't wait to see you at the next episode of the Boardrooms End.